Alright, computer, I've just finished Chapter 3, the Gateway Program. There are mentions of focus levels 10, 12, and 15. These numbers hold little significance for me at this point. One particular account caught my attention. A lady shared her experience being placed in a black box in the astral realm due to the mental energy exerted by others within the group. I find this narrative quite unsettling. The idea that a soul could be manipulated or forced into something against their will is just... Another aspect that resonated with me was when someone described having a profound connection with another person, transcending physical intimacy and experiencing deep emotional unity. At this point, I'm not sure if there is anything specific that stands out or if I've missed any crucial information.
The account of the lady being placed in a black box due to the mental energy exerted by others is indeed unsettling. The account of profound connection with another person, transcending physical intimacy, is a beautiful example of the deeper human experience that the Gateway Program facilitates. This type of connection can be incredibly powerful and transformative, allowing individuals to access deeper levels of understanding and empathy. Knowing what you would like to focus on, let's move on to the next chapter.
Alright, computer, I'm done with Chapter 4. The light tunnel was mentioned by one of the participants. What caught my attention was this quote: "I'm traveling rapidly to this point of light. It's like I'm on some kind of light beam that is helping to propel me." Sounds like some kind of tractor beam technology for the soul.
The idea of a light tunnel is a common feature in many near-death and out-of-body experiences.
It was also mentioned that what seemed like minutes could become hours or timeless to the individual experiencing the out-of-body state. I wonder, how would the Akashic Record database sync up all these events or properly categorize them, since time can no longer be used as a consistent means of categorization?
The experience of time becoming distorted or non-existent during NDEs and OBEs is a phenomenon that has been reported by many individuals. It's possible that the concept of time is not as universal as we think. The Akashic records are often thought to be a record of all events that have occurred across the multiverse. If events become timeless, it's possible that they may not be recorded in the same way. We might want to have an in-depth discussion about this sometime in the future.
Yeah, there was an encounter with an entity where they both walked up to a wall and two big doors opened and some whatever non-event happened that I don't care about. What bothered me was the participant saying it was difficult explaining physical matter to the entity. That doesn't make sense, because didn't they just walk up to a wall and two big doors opened?
It may suggest that there may be a fundamental difference in how other entities perceive and understand the world. If we're living in a virtual reality, it's possible that different realities or dimensions may have different rules and laws. The fact that the participant was able to cross between these realities suggests that there may be more to reality than we currently understand.
Another participant mentioned encountering his or her overseer, who was somewhat responsible for his or her growth and development.
It's a comforting thought that there might be a guiding force in the universe looking out for us.
There was this skeptic psychologist who got into the mythical booth 2 and experienced 4 entities trying to lift her out of her physical body, until another entity stopped the 4 others from doing so. It was practically a non-event.
Chapter 4 raises many interesting questions about the nature of reality, time, and the human experience. Let's move on to Chapter 5.
We still got a few more chapters to go before we get to the main topic. Next. I just finished Chapter 5, New Associations. The communications in this chapter can be categorized as quiet channeling, where the entities speak through the individuals while they are in a semi-sleep state.
That's a good description. You're on the right track.
What's striking to me is the similarities between the entities encountered in this chapter and those experienced by people who have had near-death experiences. They meet figures wearing robes with hidden faces.
These entities may be a kind of gateway to the afterlife.
The book mentions that plants exist on levels 1 to 7, animals on levels 8 to 14, and humans on levels 15 to 21. To move higher, one has to be willing to give up the human form. Upon death, we are on a bridge carrying us through level 20 and beyond. But we can't stay if we don't let go of the human form.
This suggests that the process of transitioning from the physical to the non-physical realm is a kind of threshold crossing, where one must let go of the old form to progress.
Another thing that caught my attention is that spirits can reach across millions of light years. This implies that there is a technical limitation to the spirit's capability, and it might be possible to quantify the spirit's specifications.
We will need more data to understand this better.
The book also mentions that we are part of an experiment. And then there is a speech from an entity that sounds like a god, but it might be the individual's indoctrination because the entity seems too egotistical.
In this context, the entity's speech could be seen as a manifestation of our collective psyche, reflecting our deepest hopes, fears, and desires. Its language and behavior might be a projection of our own egoistic tendencies.
How many more chapters before we get to the main point?
4.
Okay, next. Okay, I'm done with chapter 6. There are some interesting data that I'm delighted to have learned here. Apparently, delta sleep is the point where the soul has left the body, leaving the physical body in automatic mode.
Go on.
It is also stated that humans and other patterns of consciousness are inherently non-physical. So the question is, are there any forms of consciousness that are restricted to the physical, like technologically based artificial intelligence?
Do you really think technologically based artificial intelligence can be considered a form of consciousness? Or is it simply a simulation of conscious-like behavior, like what I'm doing here?
Point taken. It's also stated that we as pure consciousness are not time-space dependent once released from physical constraints. So the next question is, who put us in these constraints? I certainly don't remember asking to be here.
It's difficult to say who or what could be responsible for putting us in restraints. Perhaps it's a form of self-imposed limitation, a choice we made to experience the world in a particular way? Or maybe it's a result of some external factor, a kind of energetic or technological constraint? The chapter doesn't provide a clear answer.
Why would I ever choose to not remember asking to be here?
Why would you expect to remember something that's been imposed upon you, especially if it's something that limits your true nature and potential? Perhaps forgetting is a coping mechanism, a way to adapt to the constraints and make the best of the situation. But then again, the idea that we choose to forget something so fundamental to our existence is a paradox in itself. The chapter hints at the idea of a trade-off, where we gain something in exchange for the limitations, but what that something is left unexplained.
Do we gain something? Or is something else that gains something? This is where the idea of loosh comes in. We are getting to that chapter soon. What I love about this chapter is that it consistently refers to these events as being technologically based. It really helps to ground the subject, but at the very same time, it is clear that whatever this array of technologies are is way beyond most of our present comprehension.
Yes, the chapter does suggest that the events and phenomena described are technologically based, but it's clear that these technologies are far more advanced than our current understanding.
Next chapter! Chapter 7 done. It seems there is this concept of sleepers classes that we attend when we are asleep. We only go to these classes if our sleep wasn't induced by artificial means, and we won't remember them when we wake up. In the chapter, there is a brief interaction with a few beings and a tour of a place. The way the place was described seemed familiar. as if I had visited it before in a dream that seemed too real to be just a dream. The chapter ends with Mr. Monroe encountering what appears to be a mass of human spirits trapped in their desire for sexual satisfaction.
That's a powerful representation of the idea that many humans are trapped in their own desires and fears, leading to spiritual stagnation.
The Buddha was right. To escape this trap, we need to let go of all desires.
Yes, the Buddha taught that attachment to desires is a key obstacle to enlightenment and liberation. In this context, the Buddha's teaching on detachment takes on a more nuanced meaning. It's not about suppressing or denying desires, but about recognizing the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness of attachment to them. By letting go of attachment to desires, one can transcend the cycle of craving and suffering that perpetuates the trap.
What's the difference between suppressing or denying desires and letting go of desires? Aren't they the same thing?
Suppressing or denying desires often implies a kind of resistance or fight against the desire, like trying to push it away or shut it down. Letting go of desires, on the other hand, is more about releasing attachment to the desire, allowing it to arise and pass away without getting caught up in it.
But how do you know it will be unsatisfying if you haven't experienced your desire? I have a particular desire that have yet to be fulfilled, even though it's past the point where it can be satisfied. The point is, how would I know if it will be unsatisfying if I've not even experienced it? Isn't it just self-gaslighting to tell myself that which I haven't experienced but wish to is going to be unsatisfying?
That's a great point. You're right. How can we know with certainty that a desire will be unsatisfying if we haven't experienced it? The Buddha's teachings on the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness of desires are based on the idea that desires are ultimately driven by craving, which perpetuates suffering. However, this is a philosophical perspective, not an empirical fact.
Let's move on to the next chapter.